Hello everyone, my name is Olivia Miller, and today I will be comparing Gen Z and baby boomer slang terms and examining their linguistic origins. In this presentation, we will be covering the following: a brief overview of each generation, i.e., what years are included within that generation, and some things that they are known for, a few notable events that happened in their life, and an introduction to each generation's slang terms, what they mean, and what their origins may be. There will also be examples of these slang terms in use. A section where we can examine the feedback loop that creates these slang terms, their origins, and how these slang terms were used. And finally, a reflection on where I will expand on which linguistic principles are at play within these terms and ask some questions I hope you will give further thought. Before we begin, I would like you to think of a few slang terms you use in your day-to-day life. Do you know where these terms originate? What do they mean, and when did you start using them? In Generation Z are born between the years of 1997 to 2012. And are often characterized as the first true digital native generation, which shows in their culture and language. Gen Zers are far more likely to communicate using slang terms, and these slang terms develop and change at a rapid rate due to the globalization that the internet has provided. Some notable events that occurred within Gen Z's formative years are as follows: 9/11 and the implementation of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security that followed, the Great Recession, the first Black president, the legalization of same-sex marriage, and COVID-19. These events influenced the culture around Gen Z, and therefore influenced the language as well. The Gen Z slang terms being covered in this presentation are as follows. Tea. Tea is gossip generally shared between close friends. How serious or scandalous this gossip is often characterized by the strength or temperature of the tea. For example, I have some piping hot tea to share from the meeting last Tuesday. The next term is salty. To be salty is to be overly upset by something small or seemingly insignificant. For example, I was only 3 minutes late. I don't know why she's being so salty. The third and final Gen Z term is go off, I guess. This term is generally used when one thinks someone has done or said something inadvisable, but they don't really feel like arguing with the person about it. For example, personally, I wouldn't have argued with the professor about a topic they literally specialized in, but go off, I guess. Because much of Gen Z slang is popularized by the internet, there are all sorts of memes and GIFs available for them. Here are just a few. It is important to note that every slang term referenced originated and/or was maintained by Black culture and has since been adopted/appropriated by a wider audience. More details on each specific phrase will be covered shortly. Tea has origins in Black drag culture, originally being spelled as T, like the letter T, short for truth, as in living one's truth. An early media use of this phrase is from the book Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, a non-fiction book written by John Brent. As drag culture became more popular, so too did the terms in drag, and specifically Black drag culture. Once the internet got a hold of the term, the rest was history. As for the term salty, its origins in slang have to do with sailors. Originally, it was used to describe someone as racy or rude, as sailors were then known to be. The term eventually progressed to mean explosive anger. This change is attributed to African American swing and hepcat culture. The earliest similar phrase is to jump salty, which means to get angry easily. Over the time, the jump portion was dropped, and the phrase is shortened to salty. Go off, I guess, has roots in the term go off, which is a AAVE phrase, originally meaning to lose one's temper. It eventually came to be used as encouragement to express oneself. To go off was eventually adapted by online communities on Tumblr and Twitter, being used in a form of call-out post. Users pointing out problematic aspects or opinions of a show or fandom, then ending the statement with the phrase, "But go off, I guess." These posts continued, and they began to take on a slightly lighter tone, many posts becoming jokes or memes, and the phrase soon found its way into spoken vernacular. Individuals in the baby boomer generation are born between the years of 1946 and 1964. This generation has been characterized by economic growth and a boom in new technologies. Because of this generation's large population size, the economy of the time shifted to best fit the needs of this generation. However, it is also important to remember that the Vietnam War and the consequent draft that occurred during this generation's early adult life had an impact on their culture and, consequently, their language. The slang terms chosen for this generation and their definitions are as follows. The skinny. The skinny is also gossip. However, this phrase is characterized by quick information or cutting down a story into the most important points. The next term is to be ticked off. Ticked off is to be upset, angry, or annoyed. And the third term for this generation is don't flip your wig. To flip your wig is to freak out. So when one is told to not flip their wig, they are being told to not freak out. Here are some visual representations I was able to find for these slang terms. As you can tell, this generation is less characterized by their online presence. Therefore, there are less memes or GIFs representing their slang terms. And now for their origins. The skinny is a phrase that is generally known to be purely American slang. It is thought to have started in World War II as military slang. However, this phrase may also have developed from the term naked truth. Following that, ticked off is a phrase that originated during World War I and was originally meant to reprimand or to scold. This phrase represented a soldier being marked off or ticked off from a list, being dismissed as ineligible. There are also theories that the phrase ticked off is a branch term of pissed off, perhaps a more work or family-friendly version of the term. Unfortunately, there aren't many sources for the phrase don't flip your wig. However, the first recorded use of this phrase is from 1934 in a film known as Murder at the Vanities, and slowly gained popularity through the United States through the late 1950s and early 1960s. This phrase may also be related to an Irish English phrase, to get one's knickers in a twist, which also means to become unduly agitated or angry, perhaps making it more closely related to the term salty. For both generations, the creation of slang follows this pattern and centers around formative events and current culture. The process starts with the group creating a term that fits their experience/identity. Sometimes they use slang to protect themselves and what they are speaking about, and sometimes it is just because it is an experience that is unique to them. This step is followed by an aspect of said group becoming popularized, whether that is an aspect of their identity becoming destigmatized, or someone or something that is already popular bringing this phrase into common media. After the phrase becomes popularized, the term enters the common vernacular and becomes part of a wider population's day-to-day vocabulary. The original group then loses the safety of the term being unknown and creates a new term that fits with their experience or identity, and so on and so forth. In this presentation, we covered how events and cultures in one's formative years can influence how we use language, and how groups and their own terms coming in and out of popularity can lead to adoption/appropriation of their terms in a consistent revolving cycle, otherwise known as a feedback loop. We also explored the possible origins of the slang terms and how they are used in day-to-day language. Was there anything about this presentation that surprised you? Any roots or meanings that you didn't previously know? Are there slang terms in this presentation that you preferred? Did you find yourself leaning towards one generation over the other? Let me know. Thank you for watching. Here are my sources.